Welcome back to another episode of Iron and Fire. Um, and here we are again, Britt, doing this from home. So
Yeah,
at
not in
least
the
we didn't have any.
studio, not getting things together. We got to get back on track, man.
At least we didn't have any sound issues the last time. So hopefully
Right.
that continues on over today, because that was nice not having those issues again. But we do have another big episode for you today. Um, I don't know about you, Britt, but I would say this is probably one of the most hot topics in Christianity versus worldview.
Well, I think it's an interesting argument, and so like even if we take Christianity out of it, let's just look at facts, man, because that's what we're gonna do. I mean, is just look at the reality of this. It is such a crazy debate to have. And so we're just going to kind of look at that and go back and forth, and then I think at the end we can kind of wrap up why this is important and why we believe this as Christians and why we should believe this as Christians. But I think for the start of this thing, Justin, and to get it going, let's just look at let's just look at the reality. Let's look at facts. Let's look at what we have, and just look at this thing logically and see if it works. Because this is a huge, huge debate, and it is something that is so important, and it's something that's relevant. And so that's kind of where I am with it. I mean, I'm excited to talk about it. I told you that earlier. I am super excited to talk about this topic because I think it's important. Um, but I think it's one that we just accept sometimes as a society, and I'm going, that doesn't even make sense.
Yeah, I was gonna say that actually because um, we haven't even said yet what we're dealing with today is the age of the Earth, and you've got a lot of Christian people that might even be asking the question right now, does it even really matter? Because I don't know how many Christian people I've talked to that just kind of go with whatever you read in a museum or in a science book or whatever, and they just
Yep.
might not have even really given it a second thought. Like, does it even really matter? I guess is a question that people have a lot. And
And so sure, for the faith, it absolutely matters. And let's save that to the end. Just keep you around, keep you watching, because it does matter. And we'll talk about that and kind of wrap things up with that. But you're right. There's a whole lot of people who just automatically accept whatever they read in the museum, whatever it says on that little tag right there in front of it. They're, oh, well, that has to be true, right? It's written down.
yeah,
Um, and they don't even look at reality. They don't look at fact. They don't look at what we're talking about. But this really comes down to two worldviews, and it's what it really comes down. And the thing is, it's the age of the Earth is not based on observable science.
nope.
The age of the Earth is based on philosophical assumptions
Hmm.
that we make about the past, and so that's what it is. That's what it's based upon, and we've got to look at that openly and honestly, and just look at the fact of it. It really comes down to two old um, assumptions.
Right.
You either have uniformitarianism, um, saying that we have the conditions we have today explain the past, and you have slow, gradual processes. But what that doesn't take into consideration are any global catastrophes.
Right.
Um, it just assumes that you have decay rates that have always stayed constant and never changed and not had anything to change them. It assumes that rocks have remained uncontaminated. And then on the flip side of that, you have catastrophism. And it's that geological change can happen and it can happen rapidly.
Hmm.
And so we have major world events such as the flood
Yeah, and I
that
think with that,
disrupt.
I think with that, it's important to, of course, we're Christian and we believe in the flood, and a lot of people's like, well, the flood never happened, but pretty much every world religion that you look into has some kind of story of a global flood. So that's not just a Christian thing. We've talked about that on this show before and explained how we know that the flood happened. So, yeah, I mean, flood events definitely change things.
Yeah, and so and a little later on, I want to kind of get into that more and talk about why people don't want to have a global flood, what that means, and why they don't want to have that. But the if you have a major world flood, it's going to disrupt radiometric dating. Um, and when I say radiometric dating, you need to understand radiometric dating is all based upon assumption. Every bit of it's on assumption. It's not based on something that you observe. And then, along with this, you have massive sediment layers and canyon formations that point really to a rapid removal of dirt rather than years and years of time. But we have real catastrophic events other than the flood. Look at Mount St. Helens, Justin. That was at least in my lifetime. I don't think it was in your lifetime, but you didn't miss it by much. Um, but it proves that landscapes can form in hours, not millions of years.
Hmm.
And so when you factor in these catastrophic processes, especially if we have something like the flood, the entire old Earth system and thought process just totally breaks apart.
Yeah.
Totally breaks apart.
And I think it's important to say too, the worldview you start with determines the conclusion you reach later on.
Absolutely.
And so,
Absolutely.
you know,
And so I think let's just talk about that for a minute. And I think that's important because there's a whole lot of people who say they're Christian, but then they want to believe in an old Earth. And guys, that doesn't mesh. It
mhm.
doesn't mesh at all, and we'll get more into that. But you've got to look at this and just look at it with an open mind. I know it's what we've all been taught. I know it's what we've all been told. Um, but when you start digging in and you look at what radiometric dating is and what carbon C14 dating is, and we start looking at that, and those are really the two you hear about. But Justin, did you realize that there are actually many, many, many more dating methods that point to a young Earth than to an old Earth?
I didn't know that, but you know, I already know we're gonna take we're gonna take a lot of heat off of these methods. But I mean, it's what science uses, and it's very easy to see the flaws in it at the same time.
Listen, I'm ready for bring the smoke. I mean, that because the reality is when you look at this, you can't deny fact, and you can't deny that it's a historical process. Like, here's the thing: none of us were there.
Right,
None of us have watched this happen, and so if you weren't there, then you can't be an authority on it.
right,
Same as I can't. It is based on a worldview, and so you either believe that there wasn't catastrophes and everything's happened at a constant rate, which I don't see. I've not seen that in my lifetime. So there's no way I'm going to buy that for the rest of the Earth's age.
yeah,
Whether you want to believe the Earth is 6,000 years old, 10,000 years old, 100,000 years old, there's been catastrophes. You can't just not have that and say, "Oh, that didn't happen," because it has happened,
right,
and it's happened over, and it's happened over, and it's happened over. You have to take those into account.
yeah,
And so when you take those into account, old age just goes out the window.
yeah. So I think the first one we're talking about is carbon 14 in ancient
Yeah.
materials, and just how
Yeah.
quickly it decays. Well, I mean, it's not very quick, honestly, but it
I started to say you're using the term quickly there real loose.
yeah, compared to what
but
the number they
but
put down
compared to
here.
billions of years,
Yeah,
50 to 60,000 years is very quickly.
yeah, that is
And so
found
that's
in
what we know.
yeah, and it's found in diamonds, coal, dinosaur bones. It's impossible under a billions of years kind of model. Like that's not going to work. It's not going to line up
Yeah.
in any kind of way. Um, you can't.
Yeah. The fact that there's still carbon in dinosaur bones, the fact that, and we live in coal country, man, when you start digging coal and there's carbon there, the fact that you find it there in diamonds, says, hey, those can't be older than 50 or 60,000 years
Right,
old. That's the oldest. That's the max.
right.
And so there's no way that you can have billions of years
Yeah.
when you have that.
Yeah, it's C14 only makes sense in a young Earth. Like you can't
Absolutely.
you can't use the billions of years number and still go along with the C14 thing.
Cannot. Cannot. And of course, that's your first young Earth indicator that
Right,
says, hey, the Earth could be young.
right,
Um, just look at it. What's our next one?
Helium in zircon crystals.
The fact that we have helium and stuff is actually one of the greater arguments. I mean, the fact that helium is in anything, because helium leaks really quickly. Helium cannot be trapped for billions of years.
Yeah,
The diffusion rate of helium at max is like 6,000 years
yeah,
at max. And imagine that. Just saying, just saying.
yeah,
But it is a direct contradiction to geology and old earth geology that this stuff's laid down over layers and layers of time, and just millions of years and all this stuff. And Justin, you're a hunter. You like me. You like get out in the mountains.
mm,
When you if you kill an animal and you don't collect it, maybe you find one dead. You find one, you're out in the mountains. It doesn't just lay there.
no,
You never find one whole if it's laid there any amount of time, because what starts happening is things start scavenging from it,
yeah,
taking parts of it.
yeah,
It starts decaying. It doesn't lay there and fossilize the way they act like things would fossilize with that.
yeah,
With you know, all those fossils suggest that they were rapid burial. Every one of them.
yeah,
I mean, you're not going to have find fossils of things giving birth and think that that was a old fossil from like that it just laid there and died that way, and that's the way it happened. There's no way
yeah,
it suggests rapid burial. Every one of those.
yeah,
Um, and that was kind of off topic there, but these zircon crystals, they act like time capsules, really.
yeah,
And what it is, the Earth's crust is saying it's thousands of years old at best, not billions,
yeah,
not millions.
yeah. And then on top of
And so
that,
helium,
oh yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, helium is one of the more fascinating arguments and things that I think pointing to a young Earth.
Yeah, and then on top of that, you've got the Earth's magnetic field decay. Um,
Hmm.
it decays 5% per century. That comes from science. That is not something that we made up. That's
That's secular science's numbers.
right.
Yep,
So, if
that's what
you
they're seeing
if
right
you
now.
run that backward, it's impossible to have the field strength past 10 to 20,000 years, like we would think that we would
Yep,
have. So it
right.
doesn't fit millions of years in any form.
Now, of course, what they're going to say is, well, it was slower back then. It was slower back then. That us as humans have caused this decay rate. And I'm going, come on now. The reality was we've studied it. As long as we've studied it, it's been approximately 5% per century. And so as long as it's been studied. So when you run that backwards, it absolutely says there's no way this is millions of years old. There's no
Yeah.
way it is.
And that goes back to like you were saying earlier. We can't say that it was different if we weren't there. We have
Yeah.
observable science that we can look at for so far back, and it's been 5%. So, that's been pretty well constant over these centuries that we've studied it. Um,
Right.
One thing that we've seen, I feel like a lot more recently, is with dinosaur soft tissue. They're starting to find that more and more. You've got real blood vessels, proteins, even
Cells.
DNA fragments.
Yep.
Yeah. Again, that breaks down into thousands of years, not millions.
Collagen. I
Yeah.
mean, they're like the fact tissue, that we have tissue from a T Rex should tell you that it's not millions of years.
Right.
It doesn't last that long. Right? I mean, and what secular science will say is, well, there was some process that happened. Oh, why is it easier to come up with some process to say that something's a million years old rather than just say, hey, you know what? Maybe we were wrong about the age of the Earth.
Yeah.
And that's what I don't understand. Why they want to fight that so hard when there's all these other things pointing to the fact that the Earth is young.
Yeah.
And like, if you don't want to say, hey, the Earth is 6,000 years, okay, but you still can easily look at things and say it's not millions and billions of years old. Just impossible.
Yeah. So again, you can't
Um,
have soft tissue and 65 million years in the same sentence. That's just not
No, you
not
cannot.
happening.
Absolutely cannot. And I don't understand. Like, there's such strong evidence that dinosaurs are far younger than what we've ever said.
Yeah, which I don't remember if we talked about it on this show or not, but people don't like the idea of dinosaurs and humans living together. Well, yeah, we did talk about that. That was like the very first episode. That was the pilot
Yeah.
for this show, wasn't it? But people don't like the idea of it, but in reality, they did. And we even have evidence to support that. We showed a fossil in that episode that had a human footprint right in the
Yep.
dinosaur footprint. So there is
Well, you
evidence.
just look at all the dragon lore that there is.
Yeah,
There's dragon lore in every country. And I mean, so like, and when you look at it, what's a dragon? It's a dinosaur.
right.
I mean, it's what it is. So, I mean, there is so much evidence there, so much evidence.
Yeah. Another thing you got is rapid canyon formation. You talked about Mount St. Helens a little bit
Mount St. Helens.
earlier, but canyons formed quickly. It did not take millions
Yeah.
of years.
So, like with the Mount St. Helens in 1980, when that erupted, there was a mini Grand Canyon formed in hours.
Hmm.
Hours. Not millions of years, not thousands of years, not years, hours it formed.
Yeah,
And so, no, it's not as large as the Grand Canyon, but this was just, it was one volcanic eruption.
yeah,
And so, not even to bring up scripture here, but when you look at scripture, what it says with the flood, there were tons of those all over. The fountains of the deep broke open.
yeah,
So that makes sense with what we've seen with Mount St. Helens.
right.
And so when you look at that, yeah, you can have canyons form rapidly, rapidly. Um, I mean, you got layering that looks ancient in a single afternoon.
Yeah, and I think
It was crazy.
whenever you look at canyons and the different rock layers within those canyons, that you should be able to see and easily assume that there was a flood that caused all of that to stack up the way that it did. I was a coal miner for 14 years, and seeing trees and stuff in those coal seams, like it couldn't have took billions of years for that to form. Obviously, something happened quickly for that to form the way that it did, and um, seeing that firsthand, to me, it's clear evidence of quick, rapid um, things that happened. It's like a flood event that happened that caused all that to form the way that it did.
Man, coal mines, I think, are one of the greater greater ways to prove young Earth and global flood.
Yeah,
When you get out, out in Western Kentucky in a coal mine, and there's a shark that they found
right.
in a coal mine.
Yeah,
Okay, like, we're pretty landlocked. I
yeah,
mean, we don't have a whole lot of oceans around here, but yet we've got a shark in Kentucky. I mean, that to me screams global flood. You go up on the mountains, you go into some of these, and you find fossils of sea life. You find seashells.
yeah,
I mean, I'm going, man. It just screams when I'm on top of a mountain. When I'm on top of Big Black Mountain, and I find seashells, that screams to me global flood.
yeah. And they found those on like Mount Everest. Some of the highest mountain
Yeah,
ranges in the world, and obviously those things just didn't appear up there. They've had to have been underwater at some point or another to get there. So, yeah,
maybe that's it. Maybe they evolved and they couldn't make it because they weren't in water.
and they just
Would that
rolled.
fit science?
They just rolled down the mountain and made it to the sea. Yeah, that
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Maybe that's it. Which one makes more sense there? And I'm poking fun. I shouldn't, but like, I mean, we've got to be realistic here. You've got to look at facts. You've got to look at evidence. We've got to look at what we have, and not just take assumptions. Not just take assumptions.
Yeah. Next, you've got ocean salinity. Oceans accumulate salt far faster than they lose it, and
Yeah. So, and I mean, if you've ever been in the ocean, I know you have, but when you get there and you get the water and you're out playing in it or whatever, you know it's salty.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
no
and it,
doubt. You,
the thing is, it's getting saltier
yeah,
every day. Okay, and it gets saltier because it doesn't lose the salt as fast as it accumulates it. So at the current rates of where we are, the ocean would max out at about 40 to 60 million years old.
Hmm.
Where you are right now, that's the max age of the ocean. An old Earth, though, requires 3 billion years of accumulation of salt.
Yeah.
So they're too fresh to be too ancient.
Yeah.
So that knocks it down. And I mean, and to me, the ocean salinity, it knocks it down into a timeline that, it's 40 to 60 million. That's still way too old. When you look at these others and all of a sudden it's knocked down into thousands. But there's no way it's billions. There's
Right.
no way.
Right. You also got comet lifespans. Short
There's one that
period.
knocks it way down.
Yeah, short period comets burn out in 10 to 20,000 years. Um,
Yeah.
if the solar
If the whole solar system, if the universe, if it was billions of years old, comets shouldn't even exist,
right,
Justin. They shouldn't even be here.
right. Now,
Um,
you know, I've been talking about truth travelers a lot to you and people in our church, and you go
mhm.
to their planetarium and you how um, just how big the universe is, and also how you can tell that it's not that old like they say it is, because all of this stuff happens very quickly compared to what science
Yep.
tries to tell you. So,
And so what we're going to get comments on here, and so I want to go ahead and mention it, is they've invented what they call an Oort cloud for the comets.
hmm.
And it's like a rescue device. It has zero observational science behind it. But they say, oh, this is why this is, because they had to have an answer for it.
Yeah,
Instead of just saying, man, maybe we're wrong about the age of the earth, they say, oh, no, no, we got to have something. So let's invent this Oort cloud, and that'll save our comet lifespan, because comets, man, like you're knocked down to 10 to 20,000 years old and you're maxed out.
right.
Maxed out.
Um,
And so, and those are those are really that we talked about there. And I know it's all the ones we've got down, but like those are just a few of the ones that point us to a young Earth. Like they make it so easy to see that, yo, there's something not adding up here.
yeah, I think one
And,
of
and
the
I know we're
ones.
getting ready to
Go ahead.
go ahead.
I think one of the ones that is my favorite that we didn't mention is the rate at which the moon is moving away from the Earth, and I think it was Kent Hovind said, if you reverse that and take it back so far,
We're gonna get into that.
oh, we are going to get
We're
into
gonna get into that. Yeah, it's I've got it down there. We're gonna get into that.
that. Okay.
So don't run it yet. We're gonna get it.
Yeah.
Um, Real quick, I want to knock out like and just three fatal assumptions that radiometric dating makes. Because here's the thing. We talk so much and we've heard so much and we've been taught so much in school about radiometric dating, and how radiometric dating is this dating process that guarantees you can take you straight back and you know exactly how old stuff is, and you do all this, but it's based on assumption.
Hmm.
Okay, first of all, it's based on assumption, and so there's three fatal ones, three real fatal assumptions that radiometric dating takes, and we're doing this on a very very minuscule level. Okay, you can get super deep, especially like when you talk about the salinity of the ocean and all those things. Man, there is so much science behind that. When we talk about that, we're making this very very generic. We're making it where just anybody can get on here and understand it, and just saying, hey, don't believe us two guys. Go look at it. Go look at it yourself.
Yeah.
Go look at it, because this is evidence that points you to that. And so the three assumptions of radiometric dating is the known starting conditions. With radiometric dating, we've got to assume that rock started with $0 isotope. Okay,
Yeah.
there's no way to verify that. No way to verify that. And so one way you can prove that is different radiometric methods give contradictory dates to the same rock. That shouldn't happen if you had $0 isotope. You shouldn't have that. And so we know that's one of the assumptions that it makes, that says, okay, something's wrong. When you've got different radiometric methods giving different dates to the same rock, you can't have different dates for the same rock.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if
Um,
you tested that, it should be the same. If your method is
it should be
accurate.
the same. Exactly.
Yeah.
Um, Assumption two is the constant decay rates. Okay. And again, we talked about this at the first, but under this uniformitarianism, it assumes that decay never changes, that it stays constant, that that's a constant number, like it's linear. If you're a math person, it's linear, algebraic. You know that you're moving in one a line that never changes,
Hmm.
and so it takes in no um, it doesn't take in for the fact that you can have high heat, that you can have pressure, radiation, catastrophic events, and all those things can speed up decay. They can make it happen so much faster. And it takes none of that into consideration at all.
Yeah.
Um, the global flood would fundamentally alter decay conditions.
Yeah. For
So
sure.
you want to know why secular scientists don't want to say, hey, there was a global flood? Because if they do, they also have to say, "Ugh, radiometric dating may not be accurate."
Yeah.
And it changes all of science.
Yeah. They would
So
not
if
like
you
that.
say that and you accept a global flood, you change everything. You change everything there. So that's the reason they don't want to do that.
Yeah.
And then your third assumption is just fatal for radiometric dating is no contamination. I mean, real world rocks go through water flow.
Hmm.
You've seen how water will change a rock.
Oh yeah.
Lava, when lava intrudes on rocks, it changes it. There's chemical changes that happen. There's heating and reheating. Listen, the Mount St. Helen rocks, they dated at 300,000 to 2.8 million years old.
Yeah. And that was like 10 years
The rocks
after
that
it
went through
happened.
Mount St. Helens.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're talking 45 years ago.
Yeah.
Those rocks dated when it exploded, after that explosion, after the eruption there, they dated at 300,000 to 2.8 million years old.
Yeah. That's
That ought to
crazy.
tell you something was wrong. I mean,
Yeah.
if we can't trust the rocks that we know the date of, why are we trusting the ones that we don't know the date of?
Yeah.
We know when this happened. We know what it went through. We know those rocks, but we don't trust the dates of those, but we trust the dates of rocks that we don't know.
Yeah.
It makes no sense to me.
It doesn't me either. That's like the craziest thing ever, just to even consider that. You've also seen things where people's buried chicken bones from KFC in the backyard, and scientists come and date them back millions of years too.
Yeah,
And
like,
the guy's like, "Yeah, that was my KFC meal about a month ago."
yeah, I mean, didn't know I was eating a million-year-old chicken. But just, we were talking about some of these other things, like and you talked about the moon recession, and we can talk about that one first. But and I, if you want to elaborate on that, but the moon, it moves away from the Earth roughly 1.5 inches a year. I think it's 1.49 that it loses, which doesn't sound like a big deal.
No, but
No, I
if
mean when
you
you're just talking about the
reverse it,
moon,
though, if you reverse it, it is a big deal. If you use the number that science says how old the Earth is, at one point the moon would have basically been touching the Earth. And like I was saying with Kent Hovind, he said, I guess that explains what happened to the taller dinosaurs. They got mooned, and it would have knocked their heads off.
wow. Well, I mean, you got to think the tidal forces with that would have been much faster when the moon would be closer.
Yeah,
And so when you
yeah,
start running that math backwards, and that's what he's saying, when you run it backwards, like at 1.5 billion, the moon would have been touching the Earth, and at 4.5 billion, it would have been inside the Earth's surface.
yeah,
That's incompatible.
yeah,
Like the fact, I mean, it's 1.5 going out now that we're losing at 1.49 inches a year, which to us doesn't sound like a big deal. But when you start looking at it like that, it's like, no, there's no way that was possible. There's no way it was possible.
right.
And then, besides the fact of gravity, how would it have gotten off the surface of the earth?
Yeah, yeah. That's a good point.
Maybe a
Hadn't
dinosaur
even
threw it
thought of it.
up. I mean, it doesn't even make sense. Another one is the faint sun paradox. And so secular science, it says the sun was about 25 to 30% dimmer 4 billion years ago. And so if that's the case, then Earth should have been frozen solid,
Hmm.
not just ice age, frozen solid. No liquid water, no photosynthesis, no early life would have even been possible.
Yeah.
But early Earth, we know, was warm and it was wet, according to those same secular models.
Yeah.
So they have a contradiction there in their old Earth cosmology.
Yeah.
It's one they can't get around. Um, the geological record shows warm, wet conditions early on. So listen, you can't have a faint sun and a warm early Earth unless the Earth is young.
Yeah.
And that's just another one that we can look at and go, okay, something here doesn't add up. But you know, with geology, it's one that everybody wants to argue. Everybody, oh, you just need to look at, and when you study it, and Carl Kirby takes tours through the Grand Canyon and points things out and goes through and shows that there's no way that this was done over millions of years.
Right.
And it's a fascinating tour. If anybody ever gets a chance to go on it, it's fascinating to go with Carl and just let him do that. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Um,
The only alternative that makes sense is one that we've talked about earlier, and that's with the flood. Because it
yeah.
explains all this rapid sedimentation, continent-wide rock layers. Fossil graveyards. All of this stuff
Yep.
is easily explained with a global flood.
The soft tissue preservation,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
fact that we still have it is explained through the flood. The rapid canyon formation that we have explained in the flood. Listen, I remember when we took the kids out to the Badlands, and you drive out and you're in South Dakota, and all. I mean, it's just luscious green fields, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And then all of a sudden, it's like you're in a desert
Yeah.
and there's all these formations. And I remember as I drove through that, I was like, man, this is just like when I was a kid. And I'd be out playing with my Matchbox cars, and I was out there and I'd take water and dump it, and it would rush some of it away, and like it was formed. And I was going, wow, how can you look at this? How can you look at this and think that it was anything but water removing all of that?
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It really is, and I mean, like we mentioned coal earlier, and I said that I've personally seen things that I mean, there's no denying that it had to have happened by a flood, and it wasn't millions of years. Like I said, I've seen full trees underground, going
Hmm.
through the coal seam and into the seam of rock above it, and I mean, to me, it's just super obvious that that didn't form over billions of years like that. It was very quick when it happened.
Yeah, the flood explains the geological record far far better than a slow and steady uniformitarianism view.
Yeah,
There has to be catastrophic things that occur. We see that, we know that, but they still want to argue it.
yeah, and as
Um,
you just if you
and so,
strictly look at the evidence, like we've done here today, young Earth indicators greatly outnumber the old ones by far.
yeah, like take the Bible out of it. Take the Bible out of it. Just look at the facts. Just look at what we have. And I mean, it is clear that we have a young Earth. I
Hmm.
mean, it's clear. You have so much more evidence pointing to that. Um, Radiometric dating rests entirely on unproven assumptions.
Yeah,
But that's where we're taking. That's what we're taking and what we're accepting.
yeah. Not only that, but catastrophic geological processes support rapid formation. We've talked about that a lot in this episode.
Mhm.
You can look at that and see with clear evidence, that's what's happened. Of course, you got astronomy with the moon recession, the faint sun. It contradicts deep time periods. Um,
Yeah.
you know, and again, that's going off of scientific numbers. That's not anything that we've come up with. That's their numbers that they're given. And so,
Well, yeah. I mean, all of this is not stuff that we've created. I
yeah,
mean, it's there. You just got to look at it, but it's not talked about because people don't want to believe that.
yeah. Yeah, that's 100% accurate. Not only that, but
You need time
biology.
and chance.
Right.
So you got to have time and chance.
Yeah.
You got to have time and chance if you want evolution to be true. So if you want evolution to be true, you have to believe in a millions of years because you can't have it that quick. It's
Right.
impossible.
Right. Not only those things, but you've got biology and chemistry, like we talked about the soft tissue, the C14. It all contradicts long periods of time. Regardless of how you want to look at it, there's no way that it could work out the way that science tries to tell us that it does. And then physics with the magnetic field also contradicts the deep time.
Yeah. I mean, Justin, when you look at the observable evidence instead of the assumptions, the data strongly supports a young Earth.
Yeah,
Um, but the thing is, this evidence, it also fits scripture. It fits. It fits where there's catastrophes and things happen. It fits what we can see happening in our world today.
yeah,
And so that's why it's important. And so, as a Christian, why this is important to us is very simple. Why do I believe the earth is young? Because the Bible says so.
yeah,
It's that simple. I can look at all this other stuff and it confirms it. It confirms it.
yeah,
It says, "Oh yeah, that's accurate." And so I look at that and I say, "Okay, the Bible's true." If those things weren't accurate, then you might have a problem.
yeah,
Because the thing is, if I can't believe God's word on this, on the age of the earth, why in the world would I believe what He says about salvation?
yeah.
You
And
know, so the fact that we can look at this and we can see that it's clearly pointing to a young earth um, says, hey, I can trust the Bible. I can trust God's word.
right. And there's a lot of things that people would try to use to push back on that and make scripture line up with an old earth timeline by saying
Hmm.
the word day is used differently. But anytime it's used, it's always used for a 24-hour day period when it's talked about in
Well,
this context.
and unfortunately, that's where well-meaning Christians have seen, oh, science says, and they thought, oh gosh, we gotta defend God here. Well, God's big enough; we don't have to defend Him. If it's what He says, it's what He says, and science may need to catch up with it.
Yeah,
Um, and like you got to give it some time sometimes. But like this, there's evidence. There is more than enough evidence to look and say, no, there's a young Earth. And so that's not just a Christian worldview. There are many secular scientists who say, yeah, no, it's a young Earth.
yeah,
But like the fact that they just want to continue to push this old Earth, you have to push that if you want to believe evolution, and that's the push for it.
right,
And so we went through why they don't want the flood because it totally erases that. So you're not going to have that. They're not going to emit a global flood because it totally is going to wipe out your radiometric dating if you do. You wipe out radiometric dating, and all of a sudden you don't have millions and billions of years old. So you don't have millions and billions of years old. What do you not have? You don't have evolution.
right,
It all goes together. That's why they want to hang on to it. You can push back and say, oh, that's not a belief system. It's not a belief. It absolutely is a belief system.
yeah,
I have no problem telling you what I believe. I have no problem telling you where my faith lies. But not don't act like you're trying to hide behind something that's not a belief system
right,
and say no, evolution's not a belief system. It absolutely is.
yeah. So, just one last statement here. When you truly look at the observable science, the observable evidence that we see, instead of just assumptions, it is very clear that the Earth is not that old. Regardless of
Absolutely.
what you've seen in a museum or in your science textbooks, if you're still in school or whatever, it's very
What you
clear.
read online.
Yeah, yeah, seen on a TikTok video or whatever, it's very clear that the Earth is not that old. We're looking at 10,000 years, probably max, something around there.
Max.
Yeah.
Max.
Um, but
And so like again, don't take our word for it. We're throwing stuff out. Go look it up. Go look it up. We're going to take heat on this video. There is no doubt about it.
yeah, for sure.
There are going to be people arguing back.
Yeah,
I have no problem with that. But let's argue back from the sense of you're choosing your belief system. It starts with two worldviews. It's one or the other. And so like if you want to believe that, but don't try to argue and tell me it's not a belief system, because it's a belief system. It's not based on observable science. Don't give me that.
Yeah,
Because when you observe science and what we see observed, it automatically points to a young Earth.
yeah,
Automatically.
yeah. So with all that being said, we hope that you have at least a pretty clear indication on that we are not looking at an old Earth. It's pretty young compared to what science will try to tell you. Um,
And if
hopefully,
nothing else, maybe you got enough, you heard enough here today, you went, maybe I should go look. Maybe I
yeah,
should check into this.
yeah.
Maybe I should look into it and just see if they're right.
Yeah, and hopefully, as Christians watching this, that you begin to look at this and say, okay, I need to understand this, and I need to know why this is important because this depends on if I can trust the rest of Scripture or not. So,
Yep.
um,
If you can't trust him about Genesis, why are you going to trust him about anything else?
right. So this is a big topic. I'm glad we did this. Glad we had the opportunity to talk about it. Do you got anything you want to add on it, Britt?
No, I think I've said my piece, man. I'll be. It'll be interesting to see how the responses we get.
Yeah, yeah,
And I, like I said, I know people are going to come at it. It's a hot topic. It is something that's debated, but like, there's no arguing with reality and with fact, and that's what I hope we've presented. And like I said, I know there's a whole lot of more detail that we could go into on each one of those things that we talked about. We could do a whole episode just on radiometric dating. We
yeah,
could do a whole episode just on the salinity of the ocean and all that, and all those things, and all the chemistry and all the things that go into that. We're trying to wrap this up in 40 minutes or so,
yeah.
and so you've got to get real surface level to where people understand. So don't give me a bunch of details and comments. Be like, "Oh, you missed this." Let's just look at reality. Look at what we have, and we can talk about it.
Well, so again, a lot of information here. I encourage you if maybe you missed something in it to go back and watch it again, listen to it on podcast, whatever. But there's a lot of useful information here, and so I encourage you just to pay attention to it. Um, don't know exactly what we'll be talking about again next week, but we will be looking forward to it regardless. And like Britt said, we look forward to your comments throughout the week to see what you say about this issue and um, just how it relates to your worldview. I guess is the best way to put it. But anyway, we will see you next week.